All right. I'll go ahead and call to order the Fairway Fairway Estates Special Service Recreation District meeting. Tonight is Wednesday, August 22nd, 2022. All members of the board are present. Board member Bloom is joining us online. We're joined by council office staff, by Mayor Burton, various members of his staff, as well as members of the public, both in person and online. First item of business tonight is our Truth and Taxation meeting, or Truth and Taxation hearing. Before we open the hearing for public comment, we will turn first to Ms. Stack.
You have this one? Good job. Okay, we're going to just give you a quick brief glimpse here at the Fairway Estates. So this is just a fact screen. It's helpful for us to remember what this district is. It was established in 1986. It has 56 residential parcels and it is 7.97 acres in a whole. Average lot size for the homes there are 0.14 acres. So it's a higher density with some green space, right? And so that's one of the reasons the district was created, was the density factor, right? So they exchanged density for more green space. The certified tax rate for the district last year was, as you can see, 0.0000766, and the proposed tax rate is 0.0000778. Now, council, this wasn't a ton of discussion for us to talk about this beforehand. It was kind of, let's figure out what we're going to communicate to the residents. Let's keep it open so we can have further communications. So we did propose a 10% property tax rate in the district, which would change. I'm sorry, my goodness, I am just hoarse today for some reason. A little bit of the tax in the area, about $18 a year. Right now, the district is, the residents are paying about $182 a year last November. And this November, if you adopted no increase, they would be paying $181 a year per average. Kind of like what we just talked about with the city. Assessed values for residential properties went down slightly, and so property tax went down slightly. Next slide. All right. These are not exactly the same options that were given to the residents in their survey. They're close, but they're not exact. And the reason is because we adopted, the survey was based on information prior to your adopted tentative budget, which was actually reduced. So estimates were prepared in March. They were based on spending through March, and estimates were a bit high. So we adjusted those estimates. So these numbers are much more modest than the numbers that were proposed in the survey. So that's good news. I also equalized them because at the end of the day, we're really needing the same amount of revenue over time. And I extended the time period for 10 years. One of the reasons is because the reserves that are held in this fund are about 4.5 years worth of tax collections as a whole. And so if we use those reserves a little bit at a time over the next 10 years, we can get to that same place and kind of bring that tax lift a little slower into the district if the council so wishes. Next slide. You know what, go back for one more, I'm sorry. What you can see here too is, like, you could pick out a certain year and you can see what is going on, right? So option C, we're kind of going with no tax increase for 5 years. We're just going to dump on those reserves and just use them as we have them. And then we're going to lift it really fast, right? We're going to have to almost double the tax. So you can see in year 5, if we use that kind of methodology or goal, so to speak, certainly you can't obligate another council to action, right? We don't know who will be sitting in those seats in 5 years from now. So you can't say, well, we're going to adopt option C and that's the way it's going to be for the next 10 years. Well, a council is going to come year 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're going to make their choices based on input. But using these models, option C, they would be paying a lot more in year 5 than they would have been paying, but it's making up for what they would have been paying in years 1 through 4. You can see option A is like that. Let's go like 5 to 6% a year and just kind of lift that slowly. Again, you end up in the same place after 10 years, but how is that applied? How is that used? The residents requested option B in their survey, and that was 0 property tax increase this year. And you can see that in option B. And then kind of a slower lift, a higher lift, and then kind of slow that down again. And so that's what option B is, but you can see that it is less than it was previously. Okay, next slide. This would be the negative amounts you're seeing. That's how much of reserves we're dipping into each year. So you can see each of the options. Some of them are using, 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, nothing kind of, but we need to get to a place where finally, pretty quickly, we're going to be using no reserves. You can also see that the reserve balances are very similar. By year 10, they're about $12,800. And on year 10, on option A, you do see that it's still dipping slightly into reserves. That quickly corrects itself on year 11, but I just didn't want to keep going. But you can see where the reserve amounts are and how you're bringing them down. And you can see that option C is bringing them down very quickly, and then you've got to hold them up. And so that's why you saw that heavy lift. Next slide. This is option A. So the green line, or the dark green line, is the lift, the percentage increase in the property tax. You can see it's pretty even, 5% kind of year over year. Inflationary index in here, which is why you see that increases overall. But you can see that lift. Option and next option B, you can see what I said. It's kind of that bell curve, but you can see that you arrive to a similar same place, just how you get there. And option C is the mountain. So you just kind of like go, climb the mountain and get down. Next slide. All right, and then this is just for your information only. I'm not going to go over this, but you can see kind of what the changes on option A. So I said, okay, if we increase it 8% per year, 9.5% per year on those last 5 years, we arrive. Next slide. Option B is like 8%, 9%, 9.5%, 10%, 10.5%. So you're kind of going up, and then you're going down, and you quickly go down in option, by year 10. And then option C is nothing, 100% almost, right? 95%, and then drop again back to kind of that inflationary lift. So, Council, I will leave it to you for your public hearing, and tomorrow night we'll just need to decide what this looks like, whether it's 0%, whether it's 5%, whether it's 10%, but I fully expect there to be a change from what our proposal was. So, thank you.
Any questions, Council or Board Member Jacob?
Thank you. Just one quick question. When I'm looking at the reserve numbers and I don't have the rest of the budget in front of me, what's the annual expenditures approximately for the district?
About $18,000 a year.
About 18,000. Okay. And our other funds and other areas in other budgets, what do we typically recommend? What's the best practice? I'm not sure what the right word is.
No, that's good.
For reserves versus an annual budget. I know there's a ratio there.
There is. In a utility, you typically want to keep about 100%.
Right.
50 to 100. 100% is best practice. And so that would be, I kept it at 12,000 because I really talked to Parks and said, okay, if you had to replace all their sprinkler system, about what would that cost? And that's kind of what I wanted to keep in reserves, because that's really the main replacement in this particular area, unless the area is asking us for improvements, right? If they want to say, hey, we want to change that basketball court into a pickleball court, you know what, we'd be happy to do that. Let's just lift that property tax up slightly. Let's start putting into reserves, and then we can use the reserves to enhance the area. So I think it's more about listening to the people that live there and then find out that your reserve level is really a replacement cost for the sprinkler system.
And in the general fund, it's 25% is what we're limited to by the state, right? So
it's limited to 35%. Yes.
Is it 35 now?
It's 35.
It was 25. They raised it. Hallelujah.
Yeah, no kidding.
You can overtax even more. Yay. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We will now go to our public hearing for the Fairway Estates Special Service Recreation District. Again, if you're online and would like to participate in this public hearing, please hit the little button to raise your hand. If you're here in person, you're welcome to come up to the podium. You'll have up to 3 minutes. Please state your name and city of residence, and then we'll start the time. If you'd like to speak, please.
Thank you.
And since technically this is a separate meeting from the last one, if you would again state your name and city of residence, and then we'll start.
I am hearing impaired. I have hearing aids. So if I ask questions more than once, forgive me because can't hear you distinctly.
Could you state your name and city of
It's
residence?
Bruce Edmund, Edmund.
Perfect.
And
Please
my address,
proceed.
I gave it before.
You're good.
Well, I don't know how many people are here to address this other than me. And I find that interesting based upon the meeting we had over in the area. There was a lot of posturing and some of that I might say on both sides, but either they didn't get the message or they don't care. I don't know what it is. But I know that we have to do something. I don't know why it took so long to do this, and I'm not blaming anybody, but it seemed to me that perhaps this could have been addressed earlier and it might have been just a little easier process, but I don't know that. My question is, when it talks about the reserves, if that's what I'm going to call it, if you're having that X number, and I don't have the thing in front of me, but what is happening with that money? Is that money just sitting there? Is it earning anything? What's it doing? And is there are there anything, or is there anything anticipated that other than the basic improvement? When I say improvements, the basic use of the funds is to maintain the green belts. Is there any plans to do anything different in addition? I mean, how does that come to pass? Improvements, maybe something nicer. I know when I first moved in there was a volleyball court, and obviously that became a big cat box, and so that was probably a good idea that it was done away with. But I'm just looking in terms of, and I know we have a city park system, which is wonderful. That if anything else would be anticipated for those areas, and that's just a question I have. As far as the options, I think the options that you've got to get to where you need to be, and so you can either bite the bullet now and jump it up, or you can kick the can down the road for 5 years and then jump it up. I don't know that, one's more desirable than the other. Like, I can't speak for other people's budgets, whether they can afford what they can afford or cannot afford. But I know that according to the county records, my house is the second highest. I'm not going to say assessed, but that's what it's evaluated. Value is. And I find that hard to believe because there's all kinds of homes in that subdivision that are exactly like mine. And I guess somebody would have to explain that to me. I really don't understand that. A refi a couple of years ago, it appraised at 425. Now it's up to 5 something, and that's in 2 years. And I realize that's a county thing, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. So as far as the increase, I know it's inevitable. We've got to have it if we want to continue it. As far as what you're paying or what it's costing, I'm sure it comes in on a bid as far as the maintenance is concerned.
And unfortunately, yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, thank you for listening and appreciate what you do. And, whatever you decide, we'll live with. But whatever would be the easiest for all people would be probably more appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Edmonds.
Chair, could we have ask Ms. Steck if she could either speak with him or something?
Yes. So now, I just want to do a double check. Is there anybody online who would still like to speak during the public hearing? I've not. Okay, there we go. Cindy Heller has raised her hand. Let me hit the button to allow you to talk. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Okay.
All right. We can hear you, so please proceed. You'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. I live at 8531 in Fairway Estates, and I was there when we had the meeting, and as Mr. Edmonds said, it was quite heated. I understood why we had to spend money to replace the sprinkler system because nothing had been done with it before this. And so I didn't understand why there was such a big issue about it. But I like our green spaces. I have liked the lawn service we've had. I think we could do a little better on the snow removal so that we could get out of Fairway a little better. But other than that, and I liked B as the increase because it seemed to be a semi-even thing and it wasn't a huge increase. And I thought the people who came to the meeting from the city did a good job of explaining it. They had to explain stuff a couple of times to get through to people, but otherwise, I kind of agree with what's going on and think that Fairway Estates has been decently taken care of. I would appreciate if somebody would come and remove my trees, but other than that, you guys are great.
All right.
I'm done.
Thank you very much. Let's see here, give me just a moment. Is there anybody else online who would like to speak? We'll give you just a second to hit the button to raise your hand. And I'm not seeing any other hands raised, therefore I will close the public hearing and meeting will return to the board. There was a request from board member Whitelock to hear from Ms. Steck again. So Ms. Steck, if you could respond to some of the questions.
Sure, just and they're quick answers. The reserves are invested. We have an investment firm that puts all of our reserves in an investment, and so right now they're earning about 6% interest. So we definitely put that interest into reserve as well. So that goes to work for you. And the amount of reserve that we're keeping is strictly just the replacement of what is currently there. So that's kind of where we think about that reserve level. So thank you for those questions.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the board? Board member Green.
I am going to move to adjourn. I move to adjourn. Second.
Motion by board member Green, second by board member Jacob. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Seeing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.